G'day there everyone, and welcome to my channel called Vintage Time. My name is Cliff. I'm a gem cutter from Australia, and in today's video I'll be featuring my new faceting machine, which is an Australian machine. It's the first time that I'll be cutting a gem out of it. It's a Gemmaster GF2. In point of fact, it's not a new machine, it's a second-hand machine which is a bit over 30 years old. And we're going to just see how I go at faceting my first gem on this machine. Also, we'll be discussing how we can facet a very ordinary piece of gem rough material, as you can see at the moment what I'm holding, which is amethyst, but it's mostly quartz, and how we can get the best colour out of this particular piece of rough. Also, Jaws will be making a guest appearance in this video, as he's pretty excited to be watching me facet behind this Gemmaster GF2. So here we have Jaws, and he's sitting right behind me, and as you can tell he's extremely excited, as I am, and I just cannot wait just to turn on that start button on the machine. I feel like a teenager again when I bought my first car, ready to turn on that ignition. Let's hit it. Yeah, nice one, Jaws. Anyway, the first thing I'm going to do is start off with a preform. Now this particular piece of gem rough material is mostly quartz, so what I want to do, I want to orientate the gem so that all the colour will come through the pavilion up through the table of the gem. So here we have the preform, and yes, I've lost a heck of a lot of material, but the main objective is that I'm chasing the colour in the gem, and the colour is at the base of the gem, as you can see, the amethyst, and that will make all the difference to the outcome of what this gem will look like. So this particular gem is one of my designs. It's a freeform design, and it actually will look a lot like a leaf, and I'll show you what the design looks like, but it's going to be a very deep gem, and I'll be losing a lot more material because of the depth within the pavilion. Now I could have chosen any design out there that would have been a lot easier, for example a Portuguese cut or probably a standard round brilliant, something predictable. But that's not the point. I really want to put this machine through its paces. I want to see how accurate it is, and so I've come up with this elliptical leaf shaped design, which requires that I cut facets within the tolerances of 1/100th of a degree, and that the facet girdle edges are of different lengths, so it should be interesting. So to demonstrate what this freeform design looks like, I'm using computer software called GemCut Studio, and if you're right into cutting gems or gem design, I can highly recommend this piece of software. Now I'm getting no endorsements or getting no money, paid advertising for promoting this product, but I think it's really beneficial for any person who enjoys gem cutting. Now with this particular design, it's unusual because all the girdle facets are of unequal proportion, and that includes the two opposing corner facets, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to challenge myself and my machine to see if I could cut this design. Now when it comes to these elliptical type of shapes, that with the opposing end corners, if you cut too deep or if you undercut, they will not line up, and they're highly challenging, these type of shapes. And if you've watched a lot of my previous videos where I've created eye designs, you need to be able to cut to depth perfectly. Now your machine might be really accurate, but you may be using too much pressure, and once you use a little bit too much pressure, then you've overcut, and certain designs like this will not work out. So we're going through the stages now of cutting the pavilion, Now, unlike the design, I've started off cutting to a center point with 100 grit diamond topper lap, and then just smoothing that out, going through the other topper laps, for example 600 and then an 800 grit topper lap. The next step is that I'm going to facet the girdle. Now, the design says to do the girdle first and then the P1 facets, but I suggest that you cut the P1 facets and then the girdle. Now, with the Gem Master GF2 cut a girdle, it's a lot different than on my previous machine, where I just had to pull the entire mast and the head assembly back, and you just come in directly horizontal onto the plate. With this machine, there's a bit of a pivot action going on, and you're not coming in directly through the gate of the pan. It's a little bit odd, but that's something I need to get used to. So next step I recommend is to start polishing the girdle outline. That's because when you cut your next set of pavilion facets, it needs to meet up with the girdle outline. Also, for those people who want to become a patron of my channel and receive a lot of advice and special videos and just basically supporting the channel, please do so. It doesn't cost a lot, but it does help the channel out a lot. I'll leave a link in the description area for those people who wish to become a patron of my channel. So moving right along, we're going through the extra stages of the pavilion, and as you can see that if you look closely, all the facets are not of equal proportion, and that includes the corner facets, and this is where things get tricky. I reckon cutting those corner facets, that has everything to do with how accurate the gem is, and when you do the transfer, then things really start to change up, because I'm cutting a step on the crown, and as you get towards the table, you'll find any little bit of inaccuracy will start to show up as you start faceting the table of the gem. In the following scenes, you'll see how I go through all the stages of the polishing of the pavilion. What I prefer to do with these type of gems that require more accuracy than, say, a standard round brilliant, I like to polish each step in one go. For example, with the Pavilion 1 facets that meet the girdle, I prefer to do a pre-polish with my copper lap, 1 drop of sewing machine oil plus 8000 diamond grit powder. Once that's done, I move on to the final polish on the same facets using a tin lap with about 5 or 6 drops of Herco valve oil and a 50,000 grit diamond powder. Now, I prefer to do it this way because then I don't need to adjust the angle and rarely have to adjust the height, which is a real bonus. So on to moving to faceting the crown. Once again, we've got the transfer, and you've seen this many times, but you'll notice that I'm using a special little transfer block within the transfer jig. On the crown I'll be cutting a step cut, but I should add that on the pavilion facets the accuracy was remarkably good, if not brilliant. Probably the best accuracy I've had on this type of design that I've ever had, better than my other machine. Cutting those opposing corners down to depth was absolutely spot on. I had really great meet points on the P1s and P2s. Really good accuracy on the culette facets also, so I guess that's where everything starts from, a really good center point, and all those culette facets really did meet up to a brilliant center point. I've found that cutting steps on the crown to be really challenging, particularly on any gem that tends to be elongated, so you know you've got that length from end to end. And you have to make a decision, do you cut the 4 opposing corners and then cut in towards the middle, or do you simply just cut right around the gem and hope that you meet on the very last facet and you've cut down to depth? It would be interesting to know from other gem cutters how you go on step cuts on the crown, particularly on gems that are elongated. So when you're cutting all the steps of the crown and you're closing in on the table, which means you're getting up to the final step before you cut that table, which is the flat part of the crown, as you can see now, the gem will start to tell a story to you. And the story will be how accurate or how inaccurately you've been cutting. And this story always starts from the very beginning of the very first set of pavilion facets. So where you start off at the base of the gem, how accurately you've been cutting all the way through to the top of the gem, which is the crown. You cannot expect that if you get misalignment on the pavilion and then you do a transfer, that everything is magically going to resolve itself on the crown. But you can use your cheater to get you out of a lot of trouble. So when you use your cheater, make sure how far left or how far right you've had to cheat to make the facet meet. Really important, because when you go back to do a pre-polish or a final polish, you need to know where your cheater settings are. Make sure you do this. So I'm on the home straight now, and I've cut and polished all the steps of the crown. The last thing I need to do is cut the table facet. So as you can see, I've cut the table. The next step is that I polish the table using the same steps as I did to polish all the step cuts on the crown and the pavilion, using a copper lap and using 8000 grit with a drop of sewing machine oil, then migrating over to a tin lap and completing the final polish with the 50,000 grit using the Herco valve oil. So we have the final reveal coming up, and I'll have a few special comments during the final reveal. So here we have the final reveal, and as the gem rotates to the front, you get maximum return in colour where it's darker and then lightens out towards the edges with a little bit of zoning on the back side of the gem. Don't worry about the back side of the gem with zoning, because you only ever look in through the table, through to the gem, to the coulette. So this goes to show that if you buy a gem that has very little colour saturation and you're willing to orientate the gem, so whatever colour saturation you have, push that colour through to the top of the gem as I've shown you in this video, you can get quite a really good looking gem. And for those people who are on a minimum budget and you don't have a lot to spend on gems, you can buy a lot of cheap gems just like the one in this video and get quite a nice gem at the end of the process once it's cut. So hopefully this video helps people. Hopefully you've learned something. So it's bye for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care everyone.